Well, the ANC has vowed to resuscitate poor dysfunctional municipalities across the country to ensure effective service delivery. In recent times, some communities have resorted to violent protests over the lack of service delivery. There are fears that the problem could affect the prospects of the governing ANC in the next elections. Speaking on the outcomes of the governing party's NEC Lekgotla, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula said that they will adopt a 15-month resuscitation strategy. He says it will be focused on getting the required skills to ensure an effective local government that can accelerate the delivery of basic services. All right, let's now bring in political analysis. Then we are now joined via Zoom by political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng to weigh in on the outcomes of the ANC NEC meeting over the past weekend. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so very much for joining us here on SABC News, ma'am.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Well, let's start here. I mean, what do you make of the ANC's resolution to make the energy crisis a national state of disaster? Some would say, and we've heard some energy experts saying that it's long overdue. Does it speak to the broader sort of challenges of the power utility?
Yeah, I think, it's something that should have happened at least 2 years ago, because it's a crisis that is having a very negative impact on South Africa, South Africa's economy, South Africa's ability to sustain itself. And coming out of COVID-19 and the decimation of our economy by COVID-19, it's literally the last thing that we needed to happen. And so I'm not surprised that the ANC has taken this drastic decision. However, I am concerned that the ANC has a tendency of using national disasters as a way to channel funds towards themselves rather than the actual entity or problem that they're supposed to be solving. And so I'm hoping this time, somehow by some miracle, they're going to show us an ability to take things where they need to be rather than to take the money and put it into the pockets of comrades.
And in fact, there have been other concerns raised about, national states of disasters. Just watching some commentary, on social media and so forth, people are saying, we've seen what happened the last time there was a state of emergency. There was a way, for government to have this control over people. Is that sort of concern or fear warranted, would you say?
No, I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily about control or of people in the same way that it was during COVID-19. I think it's more a matter of speeding up government processes. So if you've ever worked with government or analyzed and understood government, you'll know that it can take anything between 6 months at a minimum to 18 months to go for the process of actually getting a tender, from putting it out right up until actually receiving the service for the first time. And so it's very important that government is able from time to time to shorten these processes, that government is able to act with urgency in situations like this. I mean, we've had this crisis since 2007, and so it's shocking that it's taken almost 20 years to get to the stage where it's recognized as the crisis that it is. And I think it's good that the government is saying they're going to look at ways of supplementing the national grid. They're going to fund or subsidize poorer households with solar panels and other kind of alternative energy. But I think what we're likely to see is probably a higher participation in energy production by private entities than we've ever had before. So we're going to see probably all those wind farms and all those other alternative energy sources that have been built up, that in part the government has funded, suddenly coming into play and actually contributing to the energy grid, which I think is an important and a good step, because while we are in a crisis, it is still at a point where it can be turned around if the government actually does what it's supposed to do. But of course, we know that this is the ANC, and all we can go on is a wing and a prayer that there won't be corruption and that the money will go where it's supposed to go. Because we also have the same government has received funding not very recently at the last COP meeting for a just transition, and they still don't have plans for how they're going to move from coal to cleaner energy, and they still don't have plans for what they're going to do to the economies of those countries, of those areas that depend on coal, in order for them to recover and be able to continue to be sustainable beyond coal being at the center of the economy.
Yeah, speaking of, the party has also vowed to resuscitate poor and dysfunctional municipalities, and you talk about these sort of things that we promised all the time, and they've promised this across the country. Do you see this coming to fruition, to light, or it's just another ploy really to lure voters ahead of the election next year? And have, voters started to see through, some of these stories that they're told ahead of elections?
I mean, it is potentially yet another story, but the problem that we have right now is that opposition parties are not seizing the day and taking this moment of an ANC in the worst crisis, at its most divided, etc. And this is the time where they should be showing us through these coalition governments at municipal level that they are ready to lead, that they are capable of united leadership that delivers results. And they've done the opposite, The DA mayor was just removed the other day, and there are plans to remove the Ekogoleni mayor, and we know the chaos that has been happening over many years in Nelson Mandela Bay, which is now in crisis and basically about to run out of water. And we also have Tshwane having experienced some problems. And so it's a serious problem where the government promises many things but doesn't always deliver. But because opposition parties don't always come to the party and show themselves as capable of replacing the ANC may continue to gain votes, because what they're doing now with the instability that we're seeing with coalition government is actually making people scared that there won't be stability if the ANC is gone, scared that they won't be able to have any service delivery. And so you're going to have a point where people get to a rather the devil than a new devil, because the new devil is not showing itself to have potential to do better than the ANC, which is a sad state to be, because we deserve better as South Africans than the ANC and what it has done to us so far.
All right. Thanks very much for weighing in on this. Certainly do appreciate your input, as always. Asanda Ngoasheng, who's a political analyst there.